For the brown cornerstones on my quilt, I'm going to use 3 different templates. I'm going to use a 6-inch circle, a 4-inch circle, and a 2-inch circle. I'm going to make a feathered wreath, but I'm not going to do feathers on the inside of the wreath. Let me show you. I have a few markings in this block that may or may not show up. I have a diagonal marking and a marking showing where the center of the block is. I also have markings on the outside of the block. That's so whenever I stitch the petals of my feather, it won't go into the binding area. I don't want to bind off the tips of my feathers. I'm going to use the lines that are already on the ruler, on the template, and match them up diagonally here and here with the center of the template right over the middle of them. Okay, I'm going to start my stitching right here on the diagonal. Pull up my bobbin thread. A lot of bobbin thread. Since I'm going to end up stitching over this, I'm not going to make a knot at the beginning. So here I am very carefully stitching around the template, and I'm going to cut that thread while I'm thinking of it. Get it out of here. Just going to stitch all the way around this template. Stitching rather slowly so I can be very accurate. Reposition my hand. And back to where I started. I'm done with that template. I can put my 4-inch template. Instead of centering it in the middle of the feathered wreath, I'm actually going to butt it right up against the foot so that these 2 circles are concentric. One is inside the other, but they're actually going to touch at this point, the diagonal, on the diagonal. And here I go around this one. Get my hand out of the way. And back to where I started. This little template is the most fun. I'm going to match the diagonal line of the template up on the diagonal line I have drawn here and butt it up directly against the foot so that all 3 circles I'm stitching here will meet at this one point yet still be concentric, one inside the other. I would put more than 1 finger on this template, except there's just no room for it. Switch over this way. And there. I have finished stitching that. Now I'm going to work on my feathers. I don't like to start them right in the corner of the block, so I'm going to stitch up just a little bit so that my first feathers are up on the long side of the block instead of into the corner. I'm going to turn the speed of my machine up a little too. My freehand quilting tends to be a little faster. I only pressed 1 button because I have the speeds preset. When I was working with the template, I stitched at 28%, and I've already marked that on my screen. I also do my free motion quilting at 41%. I just had to press that button as well. See how that's much faster? You can stitch a feather in there. Reposition my hands, get 1 more feather in the corner, watching the chalk line on the edge. There we go. Now I can start my feathers down this side. Reposition my hands. When I get to the corner here, I have this much space left. And I have to decide if I can fit 1 or 2 feathers in there, or maybe 3. I'm going to do 2. So the first feather I make will be half the size. And the second feather will fill in the rest. I didn't exceed my markings so that I won't bind the tips of my feathers off. Work my way down this side. Now I'm going to judge this distance at the edge. Looks like I can fit 2 feathers in here, so the first one will be half the size. And the second one will fill the other half. Go back up this side the same way. Reposition my hands. Once again, it looks like I can fit 2 feathers in this space, so the first one is going to take up half the available space. And the second one will take up the rest of the space. And I'm going to pause here again to see the space between this corner feather and where I started, and it looks like I can just put 1 big feather in there and make my wreath complete. So now I have 1, 2, 3 circles in the middle of the wreath. All the feathers are done, but I want to do something a little more inside the wreath because the lines aren't as densely quilted as the feathers are. So I'm going to take not this open space or this open space, but the one in the middle, and stitch some ribbon candy in there, which will match our pieced border, and it will also match the brown border. Stitching the ribbon candy around the inner circle, filling all the available space out to the second line. And now I'm back at where I started. When I started, I said I wasn't going to make a knot because I was going to stitch over it. I stitched over the knot when I finished the first circle. I stitched over the knot when I finished the second circle. I stitched over the knot when I did my feathers, and I just stitched over the knot as I was doing the ribbon candy. So that first stitch is going to hold very well. Now I'm just going to use the up-down button on my screen and take a couple tiny stitches. I'm done.